Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm back with another video. It is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026, and I want to comment on a couple of things. You could say a couple of significant shocks to the body politic, you might say, that have occurred just in the last few days. Um, First is the situation with the ICE murder of red-blooded ordinary Americans. It's bad enough when they persecute and harm people of color. It's terrible. But I think what's really shocked people is when just an average, ordinary white person is treated the same way as the African Americans or Spanish or whatever minority there are that gets persecuted by the government as a scapegoat, I might add. So that's one shock. And the second shock, of course, is the release of the Epstein files, which are, really causing significant consternation in the ruling classes because it exposes them for who they are. Now, so I'm going to present some context to that. In 2024, Vladimir Putin was giving an interview to someone, and he talked about the vampire's ball. So I'm going to talk about the vampire's ball, and then I'm going to talk about ICE and about the Epstein files. And then the question of are the Epstein files and ICE, are these unique situations, or is this is this normal? So, and what is really going on here? So let's dig into it. So first of all, I'm going to quote here from an interview that Vladimir Putin gave again in 2024, and this is pretty much the unedited translation of what he said. So he said, the golden billion for centuries, for 500 years, they have practically lived off of other peoples. They were ripping apart these poor peoples, poor nations of Africa. They exploited Latin America. They exploited the countries of Asia. And of course, no one forgets this. And I have the feeling that it's not even about the leaders of these countries, even though it is an important thing. But the common people of these countries, in their heart, they can feel what's happening. They can see our struggle for independence, for our true sovereignty, speaking of Russia being under attack by NATO and the United States. And they see this connection with their aspirations to be truly independent, which is exacerbated by the fact that in the Western lands, there is a strong desire to freeze the current unfair state of things in international affairs. And here's the key point. For centuries, they've been stuffing their stomachs with human flesh, and they've been stuffing their pockets with money. But they must realize that this vampire's ball is about to end. Okay, now on to ICE. The support for ICE is melting fast. There's a YouGov poll. YouGov is a polling organization in the United States. I think it's maybe in England, I'm not sure, but it's a reputable polling organization. And it says here that 55% of Americans say they have very little confidence in ICE, an increase of 10 percentage points since mid-December. Confidence in ICE has declined most among independents. 67% of independents now say they have very little confidence in the agency, up from 49% in December. And 3/4 of respondents started this week's survey after the shooting of Alex Preddy. So when even the mainstream media shows disgust with a U.S. government thug fest, something may be changing. I've included below my talk here a link to an interview that Anderson Cooper of CNN, no less, who I hardly consider as a left-winger or an independent journalist. I mean, CNN being what it is. He had an interview with the woman who actually filmed the murder of Alex Preddy. She's obviously extremely upset about it. But the fact that he was actually listening to her, asking pretty decent questions and being rather sympathetic, indicates that there's something shifting in the consciousness of the American people. Let's hope that that's what's happening. So there's that. The next thing regarding Epstein, the slow trickle of swill coming from the Epstein files has turned into a flood of toxic sewage, as George Galloway calls it, one big dirty club. When even mainstream media agrees with leftist leader George Galloway, it seems that the tide may be turning. As Galloway points out, for those of us who don't have the stomach to go through the files, there's a record of total moral depravity, pedophilia, rape, murder, torture, snuff films. That's where people film someone getting killed for entertainment. Even cannibalism. And there's an article I've cited here from the Daily Mail. It says that Jeffrey Epstein's emails calendar entry reveals pedophile network throughout Europe and the United States. It says presidents, prime ministers, royalty, and famous names previously not linked to Epstein are also featured in the hundreds of pages of documents, probably millions of pages. They show that Epstein courted the world's elite even after serving 13 months in jail for having sex with underage girls and being labeled a registered sex offender. As he sought to rehabilitate his image, dozens of powerful people were scheduled to meet him, including Irina Shayk, Chris Rock, Wendy Murdoch, and Richard Branson of the famously named Virgin Airlines. You know, he likes virgins in other ways besides airplanes. Let's put it that way. So rather than shunning him, global elites were happy to associate with him. It's really incredible. The word is coming out. There's in those emails, they talk about torture. They talk about terrible things. And apparently there's many videos that they don't even want to release because they're so horrific. So my question is, was Epstein an anomaly or is he the norm? And I cite two specific examples here. First was the case of Hillary Clinton, who was the Secretary of State, I believe, during the time when the Obama administration bombed Libya to shreds based on lies, accusing Gaddafi, who had built the wealthiest, highest standard of living country in Asia. They destroyed his country because he wanted to create a gold-backed currency, and he wanted to exercise some degree of independence from the Europeans and the Americans. And so they went in and they destroyed his country and they killed him. He was captured by these rebels. He was sodomized with a sword, killed brutally. And what was Hillary Clinton's response to that? We came, we saw, he died. Ha, 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 ha. This was in 2011. Then we have the case of Madeleine Albright. And these are females, by the way, not just males. Madeleine Albright was questioned by Leslie Stahl, I believe, and she was asked, there's 500,000 Iraqi children have died due to U.S. sanctions. And Stahl asked, is it worth it? And Madeleine Albright, in her position of great moral authority, sarcasm alert, said, 500,000 dead children, it's a difficult decision, but we think it's worth it. Is it we? Who is the we here? I don't think it's worth it. What decent person thinks that killing or sanctioning a country so that 500,000 children have to suffer is somehow some kind of morally acceptable? But there it is. Now, in 1962, Arthur Miller, who was a renowned playwright, wrote the script for the last movie that Marilyn Monroe and Clark Gable starred in. Clark Gable died 10 days after that film was made of a heart attack at age 59. I really have to wonder. He looked like he was in good shape, but dying of a heart attack at age 59. And Marilyn Monroe, who apparently had a lot of psychological issues, eventually and not to mention liaisons with Robert Kennedy and JFK, where they were treating her, as, in her words, like a piece of meat. She died of a apparent overdose, apparent drug overdose, which may be the case, or it may be something else. We don't know. We don't know what goes on with people dying suddenly for some unknown reason. She was 35. He was 59, Clark Gable. In any case, the story here was the movie was called The Misfits, and it's about these kind of like Texas cowboys, modern day Texas cowboys, and Clark Gable gets together with this one guy, and they want to capture wild horses and take them to the glue factory or the dog food factory or whatever. And there's a scene where they're tying up, Clark Gable is tying up this horse, and she's suffering tremendously. And her foal, she's got a calf, and the baby horse, and the horse is frantic. And Marilyn Monroe is looking on this scene in complete horror, and she loses it, and she starts literally screaming, "Liars, murderers, all of you liars. You're only happy when you see something die. Why don't you kill yourselves and be happy? You and your God's country, freedom. I pity you. You're 3 dead men." That's Marilyn Monroe in her last movie, as she watched Clark Gable tying up the horse. Now, I checked to see what the critics had to say about this movie. Went to Wikipedia, and they cited a couple of people. And the critics basically dismissed the characters and the plot. I'm quoting from 2 specific reviewers here. One of them from the New York Times, and the other one a prominent reviewer. Miss Monroe, inclined to adore all living creatures and have a quivering revulsion to pain. They are amusing people to be with for a little while, anyhow, but they are shallow and inconsequential. Another reviewer said, Arthur Miller seems to be trying hard to say something, as are all of his characters, but it doesn't quite come off. My comment: the critics prove the point of the film. It is they who are shallow, but hardly inconsequential. They just don't get the whole point of the film because they are protectors of the whole soulless system. Putin was correct. We've been ruled by vampires, and they've been having a ball at our expense, not to mention the rest of the world. The simultaneous events of the murder in cold blood of those protesting the gross callousness and brutality of thugs empowered by the president, along with the horrifying revelations of the Epstein files, sends a powerful message. American culture has at its core a leadership class that engages in rape, murder, torture, even cannibalism as a means of what? Entertaining themselves. They are, as Miller so presciently stated, dead men, soulless, heartless, cruel, sadistic. And this attitude filters down through the society. Is it the society that produces such abominable people? Or is it the leaders who lead the country into moral and every other form of perdition? That's a question. And my final question: can the inherent decency of people overcome this evil legacy? That is the question. So that's it for this video. Please like and share it with your friends and family and whoever else you can think of. I'd appreciate it if you can support my channel by subscribing, making a contribution to Substack or to Buy Me a Coffee, or in any way that you can. And I appreciate all of you listening into my talks, because what I'm trying to do is look at things from a kind of a fresh perspective that other people don't necessarily do. There's a lot of very good people out there who are doing good work, and but I think that I can offer something that is somewhat unique, talking about things from a more what I would call a spiritual, psychological point of view, rather than just simply geopolitics. So thanks again for listening, and I will catch you again soon.